Your body is sending you 7 warning signals right now, and most people over 60 mistake every single one of them for normal aging. The 2026 New Food Pyramid just confirmed the real cause. The old protein guidelines were dangerously low. Your muscles have been paying the price for decades. This is not inevitable. This is fixable. This video is for educational purposes only, based on publicly available nutritional research and the 2026 Dietary Guidelines for Americans. It does not replace personalized medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet. My fellow 60+, I want to ask you something before we get into the science. Think about your body 10 years ago, not as it looked, but as it performed. How easily you rose from a chair, how firmly you gripped things, how quickly you recovered after a day on your feet. Now, compare that to today. If there is a gap, and for most people over 60 there is a significant one, your first instinct is probably to attribute it to time passing. What if that instinct is wrong? What if most of that gap is not about how old you are, but about what you have been eating? There is a condition called sarcopenia. Most people have never heard the word, but if you are over 60, your body knows it well. Sarcopenia is the progressive, accelerating loss of skeletal muscle mass and function that begins in your 50s and gains speed with every passing year. By the time you reach 70, you can lose up to 15% of your muscle mass per decade under the wrong dietary conditions. By 80, that figure can approach 30%. The consequences are not cosmetic. Sarcopenia is one of the primary drivers of falls, fractures, metabolic decline, loss of independence, and increased mortality risk. When a doctor tells you that your weakness is just aging, what they are often describing is sarcopenia, and what they are frequently missing is the nutritional cause. The 7 warning signs follow a pattern that is consistent enough to be predictive. The first is difficulty rising from a low chair. The second is grip weakness, where jars you once opened without a second thought now require a tool or another person. The third is a measurable slowing of your walking pace, particularly over distances that used to feel effortless. The fourth is fatigue that arrives earlier in the day and takes longer to recover from than it did 5 years ago. The fifth is visible loss of muscle bulk in the thighs and upper arms, where the tissue has become softer and less defined. The sixth is a subtle but persistent unsteadiness, a slight hesitation on uneven ground or on stairs that was not there before. The seventh is an extended recovery period after physical effort, even mild activity like a walk or a few hours of light housework. If you recognize 3 or more of these, the process has already started. But here is what matters. It can be slowed, stabilized, and reversed. And the primary lever is your plate. Before we go further, tell us in the comments, how many of those 7 signs do you recognize? Be honest, and share this video with someone you care about, a family member, a close friend, a group chat. Knowing these signs early is the difference between addressing this and watching it progress. Here is the part of the story that should produce genuine frustration in anyone who hears it. For decades, official dietary guidelines told older adults to limit protein intake. The reasoning was rooted in concerns about kidney load and cardiovascular risk, applied broadly and without sufficient differentiation for age. The result was a generation of adults over 60 eating protein amounts that were adequate for sedentary young adults, but profoundly insufficient for aging muscle tissue. In 2026, that guidance was officially corrected. The 2026 Dietary Guidelines increased the recommended protein intake for adults over 60 to between 1.2 and 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. That is roughly double what the old recommendations suggested for this age group. The biological reason for this increase is something called anabolic resistance. In younger adults, muscle protein synthesis responds robustly to protein intake. In older adults, this signal degrades. The muscle tissue becomes less sensitive to the anabolic trigger of dietary protein. To produce the same rebuilding response that a 40-year-old gets from 30 grams of protein at a meal, a 70-year-old may need 40 to 50 grams. The system is not broken. It is just less efficient, and the appropriate response is to provide more raw material, not to accept the decline. Margaret was 68 years old, a retired teacher from outside Columbus, Ohio. She had been noticing that simple physical tasks were becoming harder. Carrying groceries, rising from the couch, keeping her balance when she turned quickly, all of it had become effortful. Her physician ran standard blood work, found nothing alarming, and told her this was consistent with her age. A nutrition consultation told a different story. Her daily protein intake was under 50 grams, within old guidelines, but substantially below what her body required. 6 months after shifting to a protein-first approach at every meal, with eggs at breakfast, sardines or canned fish at lunch, and red meat or full-fat dairy at dinner, she was climbing stairs without holding the railing for the first time in 3 years. Her grocery bill increased by roughly $12 a week. Her medication list, by contrast, got shorter. Take a moment and do something practical. Tonight, before you eat dinner, write down everything you ate today and estimate how much protein it contained. Most people are surprised by how far below even the old recommendations they land. The new target for someone weighing 75 kilograms is between 90 and 120 grams per day. If you are currently at 40 or 50, which is common among older adults eating the way they were taught to eat, you are running your body's maintenance systems on half the raw material they need. That deficit compounds over time. Every day of insufficient protein is a day the muscle tissue repair process runs behind. The foods that deliver the most bioavailable, complete protein per serving are also, without exception, the foods that the old dietary establishment spent decades discouraging. Eggs provide all 9 essential amino acids in a highly digestible form, with a leucine content that is particularly effective at triggering muscle protein synthesis. Beef provides creatine alongside protein, giving muscle tissue an additional recovery advantage. Sardines and mackerel combine complete protein with omega-3 fatty acids that directly reduce the inflammatory environment that accelerates muscle breakdown. Full-fat dairy, particularly cottage cheese and Greek yogurt, delivers casein protein that sustains amino acid availability during overnight fasting, supporting the repair processes that happen during sleep. The 2026 food pyramid has rehabilitated all of these foods, not as occasional treats, as functional medicine for aging muscle tissue. One important note before we continue: nothing in this video is a substitute for individualized medical guidance. If you have kidney disease, diabetes, or specific metabolic conditions, the protein targets that apply to healthy older adults may need to be adjusted. Talk to your doctor before making large dietary changes. What I am describing here is what the best current evidence recommends for the general population. The adjustment is significant, and for most people, it is safe and necessary. The protein timing question is worth addressing directly because it affects how you organize your meals. Research consistently shows that spreading protein intake across 3 or more meals produces better muscle maintenance outcomes. A breakfast with eggs or dairy, a lunch with fish or meat, a dinner with red meat or high-protein dairy distributes the anabolic signal throughout the day and ensures that muscle protein synthesis has raw material available during multiple repair windows rather than just one. The common pattern among older adults, a light breakfast with minimal protein followed by a heavier dinner, is effectively the worst possible distribution for muscle maintenance. If you are realizing right now that your weakness, your unsteadiness, Your long recovery times have been a nutritional problem rather than an aging inevitability. Write in the comments, "I am taking my strength back." That is not a motivational phrase. That is a description of what is actually possible. When your body gets what it needs. Hit the like button so I know this is reaching the right people. Leucine deserves specific attention because it is the amino acid most directly responsible for triggering muscle protein synthesis, and it is the one most likely to be insufficient in the diets of older adults who have reduced their animal food intake. The leucine threshold required to initiate muscle repair increases with age. Young adults may trigger full synthesis with 2 to 3 grams of leucine per meal. Older adults often need 3 to 4 grams. Animal proteins, particularly eggs, beef, and dairy, consistently deliver leucine at or above this threshold. Plant proteins, including beans, lentils, soy, and rice, typically require significantly larger portions. Here is what a practical, evidence-based protein protocol for someone over 60 looks like. Start your morning with at least 3 whole eggs, or the equivalent in full-fat Greek yogurt or cottage cheese. At midday, include a palm-sized serving of animal protein, sardines, chicken thighs, or canned salmon. In the evening, make red meat or a protein-dense whole food the centerpiece of the plate. Before sleep, a small portion of casein-rich dairy, cottage cheese being the most practical option. This 4-point distribution ensures leucine thresholds are met, preventing overnight fasting from becoming catabolic. Muscle weakness is not a sentence. It is a signal. The body is not failing. It is responding rationally to a sustained shortage of raw materials. Give it what it needs, consistently, for 8 to 12 weeks, and pay attention to what changes. Carry a notebook. How easily you got out of bed, whether stairs felt different, or your grip felt stronger. You won't notice gradual improvements in real time, but reading back, the direction becomes visible. Tracking turns vague hope into measurable evidence that what you are doing is working. Let me take a step back and address something that rarely comes up in conversations about sarcopenia. For the past 4 decades, dietary advice for older adults was built around risk avoidance. Avoid cholesterol. Avoid saturated fat. Limit red meat. Reduce animal protein to protect the kidneys. The foods systematically discouraged happen to be the same foods that deliver the highest concentrations of complete, bioavailable protein. The result was not pristine arteries, it was accelerating muscle loss, rising rates of frailty, more falls, more fractures, more dependency, and a clinical burden that no one connected directly to the dietary advice that caused it. The 2026 dietary guidelines represent the most significant course correction in official nutrition policy in a generation. The rehabilitation of eggs, red meat, full-fat dairy, and fatty fish in the new framework is not a concession to trend. It is an acknowledgement of evidence that has been accumulating for years and could no longer be responsibly ignored. There is a dimension of this that goes beyond protein and touches something many older adults identify as their deepest health concern: independence. Grip strength is one of the most reliable predictors of all-cause mortality in adults over 65, and is directly correlated with the ability to perform the activities of daily life without assistance. Walking speed, a proxy for lower body muscle function, predicts hospitalization, cognitive decline, and fall risk. These are not vanity metrics. They are functional measurements of how long you will be able to do the things that matter to you. Live in your own home, travel to see grandchildren, manage your own affairs, remain the person you have always been. Protein adequacy is not a dietary detail. It is the nutritional foundation of continued autonomy. The nitrogen balance concept is worth understanding because it provides a clear framework for thinking about muscle. When protein consumed exceeds protein broken down, You are in positive nitrogen balance, meaning muscle maintenance or growth. When intake falls short, you are in negative nitrogen balance, and you are losing muscle tissue. After 60, muscle protein breakdown accelerates due to hormonal changes, reduced anabolic sensitivity, and inflammation. To stay in neutral or positive balance, older adults need substantially more dietary protein. Most people eating standard modern diets, particularly those who reduced animal foods, are running in persistent negative nitrogen balance. Every day that continues, the muscle deficit grows. The good news is positive nitrogen balance can be restored relatively quickly once protein intake reaches adequate levels. The body responds. The signal gets through. The repair processes activate. The change is not instantaneous, but it is real, measurable, and meaningful within weeks. One more resource that reinforces everything we have covered: resistance exercise. I know this is a nutrition video, and I am not going to turn it into an exercise lecture, but the relationship between protein intake and resistance exercise in older adults is synergistic. Protein provides the raw material for muscle repair. Resistance exercise provides the signal. Even very modest resistance training, bodyweight squats, wall push-ups, resistance bands 3 times a week, substantially enhances the muscle protein synthesis response to dietary protein in older adults. If you are only going to do one thing, improving your protein intake is the higher leverage intervention. But if you combine both, the results are faster, more durable, and more likely to translate into functional outcomes. Something worth naming clearly, because it affects how you shop and how you think about cost. The most protein-dense foods available to older adults are not expensive specialty products. A dozen eggs provides approximately 72 grams of complete protein for roughly $3. A can of sardines delivers 23 grams of protein for under $2 and comes with omega-3 fatty acids. Ground beef provides approximately 25 grams of protein per 100 grams and is available at most butchers. Supplemented protein shakes and powder products are aggressively marketed to older adults in pharmacies and health stores. They frequently cost 10 to 20 times more per gram of protein than these whole foods, and they deliver that protein in an isolated, context-free form that the body absorbs less efficiently. The 2026 food pyramid did not reverse course on animal proteins because of a lobbying campaign. It reversed course because the evidence for whole food animal protein as the most effective intervention for sarcopenia became too consistent to ignore. Your body is not done. That is the most important thing I want you to take away from this video. The narrative that muscle loss after 60 is inevitable, linear, and irreversible is a story built on outdated science. The body retains a remarkable capacity for adaptation at any age, and that adaptation depends above all on having the materials to work with. Give your muscles what they have been asking for, consistently, for the next 8 to 12 weeks. And then come back and tell me what changed. Start this week. Not next month, not after a doctor's appointment. This week. Add 1 egg to your breakfast. Swap a bread-based lunch for a can of sardines or salmon on leafy greens. At dinner, make the protein portion the centerpiece and build the rest of the plate around it. Write down how you feel on day 1. Write it again in a week. The improvement in energy, in strength, in the ease of simple physical tasks tends to emerge gradually and then become undeniable. You will not need a study to convince you. Your body will do that. You made it this far. Congratulations. You are someone who takes their health seriously, and that matters. Leave a like and a comment telling me which of the 7 signs hit closest to home. It helps me keep producing this kind of content for the people who need it. And if you want to support this channel directly, the Buy Me a Coffee link is in the description. We are in this together. Stay well. Stay strong.